Peace. Not the grand kind that ends wars or the political kind tossed about in treaties. No, I'm talking about a different sort of peace. The kind that slips in quietly, like sunlight through heavy curtains on a winter morning. The kind that doesn't raise its voice, doesn't demand, doesn't chase. And yet, it's precisely this elusive calm that avoidant men find intoxicating. Today, we're exploring the surprising traits avoidant men find attractive. Not just what they say they want, but what they're silently, desperately drawn to. Often unknowingly. And I'll take you there, not with cold data or lab coats, but with stories, wit, and that little thing called the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. Let's begin with a question. What does the lone wolf truly crave? We imagine him with teeth bared, eyes scanning the forest, fierce and free. But the truth, he's cold, tired, surrounded by shadows, because wolves aren't meant to be alone. Avoidant men, they carry the scent of that lone wolf. Not by choice, mind you, but by history. Their world taught them early that vulnerability was dangerous. That connection was chaos wearing a smile. So they built walls. Not castles, mind you. No. Fortresses. Built high and thick with stone carved from childhood wounds. But here's where it gets deliciously ironic. While they run from intimacy, they're also hungry for it. They just won't call it that. They call it quiet. They call it order. They call it not being smothered. But peel back those layers, and you'll find what they're really seeking is a woman, a partner, who doesn't increase the volume of the world, but softens it. Now let me tell you a story. I once knew a man named Ellis. Broad shoulders, eyes that missed nothing, and a habit of sitting with his back to the wall in every cafe. He had charm, but not warmth. He laughed, but never leaned in. He dated women who dazzled. Brilliant, intense, full of sparkle and flame. And every time he vanished after 3 months. Like clockwork. Why? It's too much, he said once, after his 4th disappearing act. They feel like firecrackers in a church. What did he end up with? A woman named Claire. Soft-spoken, not passive. No, don't mistake the two. She had the calm of deep water, not shallow stillness. She never asked where he'd been, because she didn't need to. She just was. Present, consistent, predictable, in the best way. Not boring, grounding. And for the first time, Ellis stayed. You see, avoidant men are drawn to women who radiate something they lost long ago. Safety without control. Intimacy without invasion. The trait they find most attractive. It's emotional regulation. A regulated woman doesn't drown him in her storm. She invites him into her stillness. She becomes the first person in his life who doesn't ask him to carry her chaos. And he doesn't know why. But suddenly, he's not exhausted in her presence. This is where the surprising part begins. Avoidant men are magnetized not by intensity, but by measurability. They don't want to decipher riddles. They want a calm voice saying, "I feel disconnected. Could we talk for 10 minutes tonight?" Not, "You never listen to me. You don't care. You don't love me." Let me be clear. They do care. Deeply. They just don't show it in the same dramatic external way. They show it by staying, by listening when it counts, by relaxing, for the first time in years, because you, in all your steady presence, allowed their nervous system to exhale. They are attracted to partners who speak clearly, not loudly, who ask without demanding, who feel deeply, but carry those feelings with grace, not grenades. Let me offer another example. An old friend of mine, Matthew, former military, stoic, closed off, never seen in a vulnerable moment. He once told me, "I don't trust easy. Never have." But then he met someone, Juliet. What did she do? She didn't ask about his feelings every 5 minutes. She didn't force vulnerability like an interrogation lamp in a prison cell. She simply noticed. When he was quiet, she'd cook his favorite meal without comment. When he disappeared into himself, she didn't chase. She waited. Not out of weakness, but understanding. Eventually, he came to her. That's the magic. Avoidant men are not looking for someone to crash through the gates of their fortress. They're waiting, secretly, stubbornly, for someone to be the reason they unlock it from the inside. And what else do they find attractive? Consistency. A woman who says what she means and means what she says. No mind games, no emotional acrobatics, just truth, plainly spoken. Discretion. They recoil from emotional chaos, not because they don't care, but because it overwhelms their already flooded system. They admire someone who can self-soothe, who doesn't need fixing, rescuing, or rearranging. Respect for solitude, not abandonment, not indifference, but a partner who understands that sometimes silence is not a punishment. It's a refuge. That love can be present even when words are not. And above all, peace. Not the peace that comes from perfection, but from presence. From knowing that this person beside them won't erupt, won't betray, won't collapse into need. That is the surprising truth of it all. Avoidant men, yes, those cool, distant, sometimes frustrating creatures, aren't heartless. They're heart-wounded. They want love as much as anyone, but they want love that feels like rest, like safety, like home after a long war. So if you, dear listener, have ever loved an avoidant man, or are one, perhaps you understand now why the traits that seem so small, emotional clarity, calm, steady presence, are in fact monumental. In the end, avoidant men don't fall for the loudest person in the room. They fall for the quiet one, the one who makes them feel less like they're being chased and more like they're being welcomed. And when they do, well, my friend, that's when the fortress becomes a garden. And inside, peace. Real, surprising, life-changing peace. And that, as it turns out, is the most attractive thing of all.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.